Hey guys, Sean here at the Gardener Center, and you know, this week is going to be my last video of 2020 pertaining to outdoor gardening, because let's face it, I might be pushing it a little bit at this point with the outdoor gardening content because it's getting cold out, but it is an important topic this week because a lot of people do it. I'm going to be talking about container gardening over the winter, so as in having live plants in your containers outside on your porch or on your patio like you would in the spring and summer months. Going to get into why that doesn't always work and steps you need to take to make sure they're still alive in the springtime. Before I get into that content, I'm going to take a couple minutes just to let you know about some things that are going on here at the store. If you haven't been with us since the spring or haven't been here ever, I just wanted to remind everyone that we have completely, totally contactless shopping out here in the nursery and the beautiful fresh air, which is, although fresh, sometimes chilly, so dress appropriately. But we have contactless shopping out here. Our inside Christmas shop, of course, is open, and we'd always invite you to go in there. But if you're not comfortable going inside the store, you can do all your shopping out here in the nursery. The only thing you have to touch while you're here is your own credit card. We're not requiring signatures for credit card payments. You can also use your house charge. So that's still available here for us. And also, super exciting news, we have just this week launched an e-commerce segment to our website. It's gogcf.com. We don't have the whole store on there yet. We're going to be working on that over the winter. But right now you can shop and browse our outdoor Christmas offerings online. So even if you don't, you can have them ready for pickup, or you can have them delivered here locally. But even if you don't want to arrange for a delivery or pickup, it's a nice tool to use if you want to shop, you know, price shop or check prices. The really cool thing is it has a live inventory. So if you see something you like and you want to know, you need 5 of them, it's going to save you that phone call because you can see right there how many we have in inventory. So super great tool. We're super excited about that. One other thing just to throw at you, as the holiday season is getting busy, pro shopping tip right here. If you want to come down but you don't want to deal with crowds, maybe you do want to check out the inside store. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday mornings between like 9 and 11 is usually quiet here. Obviously avoid the weekends if you're trying to avoid crowds, but weekday mornings are always quiet here, so if you want to come by and check out the inside store, that's the time to do it. So stick around, because next I'm going to be talking about these beautiful babies and how to keep them happy all winter. So a couple of weeks back, Jamie and Lauren talked to you guys about our beautiful evergreen drop-ins that we do for the holiday and winter season. You know, those guys are very beautiful. We sell a lot of them, but of course those are disposable. You keep those outside for the winter, and then in the spring you throw them out and you do another one next year. These live evergreens are a nice alternative to that, especially if you're looking for a little more bang for your buck, because these guys can all potentially be planted in your garden in the spring. I say potential because this is all hinging on whether or not they survive the winter. A lot of things can go wrong with these guys over the winter. I'm going to kind of talk about how they're different than growing plants in the spring, summer, fall season, and then give you some tips on helping to keep them alive over the winter, and then of course get into a little bit of why they're not surviving the winter outside and steps you can take to make sure that they do. So first thing to keep in mind, obviously these are all live plants. They are done growing for this year for sure. Look at how I'm dressed. Our warm days are over. So these guys, when you plant these now, you're setting them in there, but they're just going to sit for the winter. They're still going to need to be watered. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But basically, they're going to sit as is for the winter. So you can pack them in real tight together in a container if you want to. You know, and mix them up really nice. You don't have to worry about them growing or leaving space for them to fill out, because they're not going to do that. They're going to hopefully survive the winter and go in your garden in the springtime. The main reason we run into problems with plants like this over the winter, you may remember a couple weeks back when I talked about keeping pottery outside over the winter and the difficulties we have with that because of the inconsistencies with our temperatures here. Same problem with these evergreen plants outside. If we live south of the Mason-Dixon line, you could have these out on your porch all winter, every year with no problem, because the weather never gets too severe there. Here, some years it is and some years it isn't. You know, some years we have winters like it's Washington, D.C. here, and then some winters it's like Bangor, Maine. And unfortunately, you never plan ahead for that. So the trick with these guys is, you know, and you have to think about this, and this is why you'll lose them over the winter, and it's the temperature. So they're in a pot above ground. Now, typically these guys would be planted in the ground and established there, so they could care less what the air temperature is. These are all super hardy plants. But once you put them in a container above ground, the soil in that container is being exposed to the air temperature, which it is not being exposed to when they're in the ground. So think about it. You have a container on your porch above ground and it's 5 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, that's the temperature the soil in the pot is. And the soil freezes solid. But what's happening here is it isn't that the soil that's freezing that's causing the problem. It's not the cold. When the soil freezes, these plants can't drink anymore, because these plants obviously are equipped to move water from the roots up into their foliage. They're not equipped to move ice crystals. So once the soil freezes, the water's frozen, they can't get the water to their foliage anymore. And that's what separates these evergreen plants. You know, I've got broad-leaved evergreens, the leafy guys, and, you know, conifers, the needly ones. These guys are different from, like, say, a hydrangea or an oak tree. Those guys lose their leaves in the winter. They don't transpire anymore. So transpiring is, you know, when the water moves from the roots to the foliage of the plant. It's kind of like perspiring in us. You know, the plants have little stomatas in their leaves that open and close, and they let the water out. But they, you know, they still need the water in the wintertime because they're still transpiring. When the ground freezes, they lose access to their water. And what will happen is they may freeze, they may die, but you may not know about it until March or April when they warm up. Because think about it. If you've ever had like a Christmas wreath, maybe you had a Christmas wreath on your front door and you left it there until March. Sometimes they still look nice in the springtime, because the cold temperature preserves them. So a lot of times these guys may perish on you over the winter and you won't know it until the springtime. A couple little inside tips here if you want to make sure your evergreen plants survive in the winter. You want to avoid, unfortunately, everybody's favorite is the boxwood. And of course I have a holly over here too, which people love to plant in their containers. And I don't even sell little hollies here in the Christmas time season or the winter season for planting in little containers, because they won't make it. Holly's roots are only hardy to about 20 degrees above zero. These guys are guaranteed to die over the winter if you keep them above ground in a container. The reason we don't offer them for sale here, because I mean, let's face it, guys, we're not here to sell you plants that are going to die so you need to buy more next year. We want to sell you plants that you're going to be successful with and make you happy, and then you'll want to buy more plants. That's what we're about here. But yeah, you want to make sure, if you want to make sure your plants are going to survive, you want to stick with the needled the evergreens, the conifers. So these guys, besides being super hardy, they don't transpire as much as the broadleaved evergreens do, because they have much smaller needles, much smaller leaves. So they're not losing as much moisture over the winter. Alberta spruces, let me tell you something about these guys. We always have some Alberta spruces left after Christmas time out here. And most of our shrubs and perennials that we have left over, we mulch and we put protection on. I can literally leave these guys blowing around the nursery all winter and they're just fine come spring. So if you want to be sure your plants are going to survive, Alberta spruces are the way to go. Some little bird's nest spruce here. Same could be said for the junipers. It's the broad-leaved ones you have to watch out for. And unfortunately, a lot of those are the pretty ones. But these guys, like this little wintergreen here, which is so beautiful, but if these guys freeze for too long, you're going to lose them. You're not going to know till the springtime. If any of you guys have rhododendrons planted in your yard, you know, the big leaf rhododendrons, you may notice sometimes when it gets super cold, like below 20, especially if we don't have snow on the ground, that their leaves will roll up like cigars and hang down. That's because the stomata on the leaves that I talked about, where the plants are transpiring through, most of the stomata are underneath the leaves. So those rhododendrons are rolling up their leaves like that, trying to hold that moisture in because the soil's freezing. These guys, your boxwoods, everybody loves these, but they have the same problem. You know, the soil in that pot freezes, and they can't shrink anymore, and they just perish. It's like leaving it outside for a month in the summer and not watering it at all. It's the same thing happening. You know, these plants, get a little sciencey here for a second. You know, only about 3 to 1% of the water a plant drinks is devoted for growth. The other 97 to 99% of the water a plant is uptaking is just going through transpiration, which is part of the photosynthesis, part of the breathing process. So they need a lot of water, and I mean, and that just keeps happening with these guys in the wintertime. So you do want to make sure when you get your plants potted up, water them once, deeply, thoroughly, and you shouldn't have to worry about it much over the winter, especially if they're in an exposed area where they're getting rain and snow. You don't have to water them at all after that. If you have them on a covered porch where they're not getting rain, you may want to take every couple of weeks, you know, a good amount of water and give them a good soaking when it's above freezing. But like I said, if you want to make sure you guys are going to survive, stick with the needles. The boxwoods, although pretty, they're not going to make it every year. Some years they will, some years they won't. I always tell everybody it's a 50-50 chance with the broadleaved evergreens. Some years yes, some years no. You know, so keep those things in mind if you do decide to go this route with the live plants. They're definitely worth a shot. I mean, the way this winter's been going so far, I mean, let's hope it stays this way. We'll see what happens. But yes, do give these guys some consideration, and we'll see you next time.